Hello, my name is Fred Stella. I was invited to take part in a panel. This was for an interfaith project from a local university here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And the theme of the panel discussion was religious extremism. And we all had to talk about extremism within our own traditions. First, let us affirm that extremism does exist within Hinduism. We can't deny that. There are innocent victims that have borne the brunt of Hindu anger. But let's go much deeper than I think a lot of other religions have gone in discussing this. So first of all, let's ask ourselves, what causes extremism? Now, I see two opportunities. There may be more, but these are the first two that are quite obvious. Either an expansion of power, such as, say, and as an example, the genocide that took place on this continent by the European Christians of indigenous peoples. ISIS would be another example of terrorism or extremism for the expansion of power. The second reason is often fear, such as the fear that white supremacists in this country have in losing their primary place in society. Now, let's talk about Hindu extremism. I'm going to ask you to think of all the countries where Hindus have a significant presence. Obviously, the first one on the list has to be India. There's also Nepal, Sri Lanka, Kenya, South Africa, Uganda, Mauritius, several countries in the Caribbean and South America, Indonesia, Malaysia, and in North America, there are certain pockets of populations, such as New Jersey, Texas, California, Florida, Ontario. Now, in all of the countries that I just mentioned, there is only one where you will find Hindus committing violence on people of other religions, and that's India. You will not find extremist activity in any other country at the hand of Hindus. So, why just India? And keep in mind, of course, that India has welcomed many religious traditions and communities into its borders that have been persecuted elsewhere over the centuries, and they have lived quite harmoniously there. These include the Christians that have been in India for 2,000 years, also the Jews over 2,000 years. And imagine, they have not suffered any anti-Semitism the way they had in Europe and in Arab countries. The Zoroastrians, they fled from Persia around the 8th to 9th century because they suffered persecution in what is now modern-day Iran. The Baha'is, the same thing. This is a religion that is 200 years old. It was birthed in then Persia, and now a significant number of Baha'is have fled, many of them to India. As a matter of fact, they have one of the most beautiful temples in their tradition in Delhi. Look at the Tibetan Buddhists. They were chased out by Mao's Red Army in 1950. They crossed the border, and now the headquarters for Tibetan Buddhism is now actually in India, the current home of the Dalai Lama. India has also been a place of respite for Muslims, particularly those Muslims who are considered heretical or blasphemous by more Orthodox Islam. This would include the Ahmadiyya Muslims and the Ismaili Muslims. And then also we have to consider the fact that other dharmic religions live in India with in relative harmony. Now, I mentioned Sikhism. Yes, there has been conflict between Hindus and Sikhs in recent times. But keep in mind, and this is something that's very important, any of the issues that there are between Hindus and Sikhs, none of them is theological. It's not that the Hindus consider Sikhs heretical. It's not that they consider them impure. The conflict between Sikhs and Hindus has been purely political. And then, of course, there is Jainism, and there are also the tribal religions that exist in India. All seem to coexist quite well. Now, there are two religions that Hinduism has a problem with in India, and there is tension among these religions. What are they? Islam and Christianity. So the question that comes to mind is, of all the religions that have expression in India, why only these two? Well, let's take a look at Islam. Hindus in India see the heinous treatment of their co-religionists in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. They saw Islamists ethnically cleanse and religiously cleanse Kashmir of hundreds of thousands of Hindus in 1990. And India has experienced multiple jihadi attacks over recent years. Now, I'm going to use the term jihadi or jihad. It may not be the most appropriate term here, as the violence exhibited does not meet the high standards for physical force set in the Quran, but many followers of the violent hadiths of Muhammad that have been handed down for generations, even though many Muslim scholars dispute them, they use the term jihad, so we will as well. There are several jihadi movements in India today that seek to destabilize the country. Now, this has brought a response from many Hindus who feel that their culture is being threatened, and sometimes that response is extrajudicial, violent, and devastating to innocent Muslims. Now, I compare this to the Red Scare of the 1950s. During that time, there were Americans who were working in league with the Soviet Union towards an overthrow of the United States. But many people who just exercised their right to attend a meeting or hold a different political viewpoint from the majority were swept up along with real bad actors. A number of lives were destroyed. The catchphrase of the day was "a red under every bed." Hindus do need to become more discerning when it comes to spotting would-be terrorists, lest they become terrorists themselves. As to Christianity, while the original Christian settlements 2,000 years ago were considered benign, Christians who came after were far from. The Portuguese brought the Inquisition to Western India, destroying hundreds of temples. About 2 centuries later, England dominated the country, bringing an imperialist version of Christianity with them. And now, Indian Hindus have to deal with aggressive conversion campaigns by organizations such as the Joshua Project and Mission India, which, by the way, is headquartered here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They are quite transparent in their goal to completely convert the subcontinent. That is, to wipe out Hinduism. While it's true that humanitarian aid is often a part of the package, Hindus have great disdain for what they have seen as a continuation of a form of Western imperialism. Sadly, some of these efforts have been violent. So, what we can take away from this is that if there are Hindus who react in extreme measure towards people of different religions, number one, we're only talking about two of the many religions that are in India, Islam and Christianity. And this is a second point is very important. The problems with Islam and Christianity in India are not theological. It's not because Christians and Muslims have the so-called wrong beliefs. Hindus don't care whether someone venerates Jesus or venerates Muhammad, whatever. That's just fine. There is no word for heresy in Hinduism. I don't believe there's a real word for blasphemy. So the issues with religions are pragmatic, earthbound problems, not transcendental theological problems. If Muslims and Christians were behaving in the same way as Zoroastrians and Jews and Buddhists, there would never be a finger lifted against them. Now, in 2005, I completed a 30-city lecture tour within 4 Indian states where predatory conversion campaigns have a significant presence. While encouraging audiences to maintain pride in culture and religion, I emphasized strongly the importance of a Gandhian nonviolent reaction to such affronts. So let me clearly state that I condemn any force used upon people, innocent people, because of religion, ethnicity, or social status. At the same time, I understand the frustration and anger that many people, many Hindu people in India feel because of concerns for their culture, for their religion, and way of life. Thank you.